how they're doing what they're doing, because it might be a template for others. Jen, what's going on?
Yeah, so Damo, I just want to point out, not that I'm downplaying whatsoever having in real life events, right? But I think we can't overlook the power of these spaces and the power of bringing people together around central issues. And especially like following January 6th, right? When they literally cracked down on all of us and made it pretty much illegal for us to even like organize, because they were, having undercover agents in there creating violence. So, like, our events would look violent. We were able to come together on these spaces and really make a huge difference in organizing. And I think, like, having the in real people or person events is super important, but also having the spaces to go along with it. Because with these spaces, we're able to bring people together from all over the country. Nobody has to travel, nobody has to pay for a hotel. No, we don't have to organize a huge event and have all of the security and everything else. These spaces have been such a huge help. And then having those in IRL events is super important. But I think the backbone is truly these spaces, because it brings people together that would normally never be able to come together.
Yeah, totally. So to add some context, we're not really talking about events per se. What we're talking about is local people organizing with their other local people, not necessarily just to throw events, but to have initiatives that are community based. So like this idea of a group of people getting together and doing a group purchase of high quality pastured meats on a regular basis from local ranchers, and then making sure that that's able to get out to other community members and require events. That can be a Facebook group. And I hate to say Facebook, but as Kristina and I have been talking over the last few days about how to organize, not just discuss and come together for conversations, but organize, that the tools available on X are really not up to the task of effective community organizing. But however people choose to do it, an email list, an SMS group chat, anything like that. And you're right, these spaces are very much a backbone for that sort of meta organizing and meta awareness and conversation. And one of the things we're thinking about is, as we try to help maybe form a template for what community groups look like and the kind of things they can do together, that these spaces and even X communities and whatnot are a way for us to communicate with each other, to share what we're trying, what's working, connect each other with resources, hold each other up when we're experiencing challenges. So they're really synergistic, and it's very much both. It's very much both.
I mean, as much as we hate on Facebook, right? First of all, Facebook's maybe come a long way. I guess Mark Zuckerberg was at the White House again today. So maybe he's not censoring us into oblivion so we can't even like communicate on Facebook, right? But what Facebook's important for is those local community groups, because a lot of the older population and people who don't use X are on Facebook, like for family and stuff like that. It's just a matter of getting around the censorship that Mark Zuckerberg was placing on all of us, that like our Facebooks were like pretty much completely useless. Like I have a huge Facebook public page, but like it is censored into oblivion.
Oh, I totally believe it. And I do not trust Zuckerberg as far as I can throw him. And the only reason I brought up Facebook is exactly what you said. The tools that they have are really effective, especially for local organizing and for local sort of community work. And for groups, like not every MAHA group is going to be fixated on the most controversial topics. If you're getting together for community gardens and community and like park cleanups and other sorts of initiatives like that, or supporting a local candidate for office, that's a lot less likely to be censored to begin with. But I am hopeful that he's sort of backed off of that, because he knows he's not going to get away with it as much under the current administration. I guess we'll see how that goes, right?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Mark Zuckerberg, what a freak.
Yeah. Yeah. But we'll get into more of that conversation in a little bit. I wanted to start off by talking about the big shakeups in the leadership at some of these major agencies that Bobby oversees. First of all, Fauci's wife just got fired from the NIH. And that seems like a pretty big deal. I was really excited to see that because apparently she oversaw some stuff that clearly needed the kind of shakeup that Bobby's bringing. But then also, of course, Jay Bhattacharya is now the head of the NIH. Marty Makary is now head of the FDA. And one that folks might not be as familiar with, I certainly wasn't, is that Dr. Stella Immanuel is now the deputy director of the CDC. This is really exciting, especially as concerned as a lot of people were with the nominee to head the CDC, who's a bit more of an administrator, and she's a scientist, but she was more of a bureaucratic functionary, as far as I hear. But Dr. Immanuel was one of these ones that, like at the beginning of COVID, was speaking out hard about the Texas State Department of Health being really heavy-handed on all sorts of things. In fact, she posted her announcement that she was made the deputy director of the CDC, and then I see that she drove pretty much right away to Austin to testify in the Senate Health Committee about the heavy hand of Texas medical boards on physicians who were advocating hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. So like this seems like someone in a high-ranking position at the CDC that is absolutely on Team Bobby and on Team MAHA. So I think we have a lot of reason to hope there as well. Kristina, did you see that link I shared? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Damo, for those who might not know who Dr. Stella is, because you know who Dr. Stella is, you might not realize you know. She was the Black lady early on in COVID, was one of the white coat doctors, the lead one that was standing up there yelling about what was going on with COVID. So she's been a very like front face of the anti, like I guess for lack of a better term, like anti-COVID movement, because of what the medical community was doing.
Great. Yeah. I mean, that is the vibe that I picked up from her. And I personally wasn't as focused on all of this while it was going down. I had friends that were very up in arms about it, like Kyle Kemper. And honestly, I wasn't in a great place at the time. And I kind of checked out and tried to focus on myself and just ride it out, honestly. So I really appreciate that information. It is super helpful for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't know too. Kristina, do you have that link that I sent in our group chat with America Mission? It's a quote from Callie Means. It's just a short video of Callie Means speaking in front of a room full of lobbyists defending the 20,000 cuts at HHS.
Is this a political one? Politico?
Let me see.
Yeah, I can pull it up and play it for sure if that's what you're.
Yeah. Let's see which one it is here. It is 2 up from the bottom.
2 up from the bottom. All right.
Yeah, end tribalism in politics. That one.
Perfect. End tribalism in politics. Yeah, let's give that a play, everybody.
Sweet.
All right.
They fundamentally have overseen, just demonstrably, a record of utter failure. It would be insane. Is that funny? Is that not true? I'd love to hear how. So what metrics would you guys point to for?
Oh, sorry.
How the scientific community, how the 4 times more per capita on healthcare spending that we spend in America versus other countries has produced innovation. Has there been one single chronic disease medication in modern American history that has lowered rates of chronic disease? Is it appropriate that the American Academy of Pediatrics right now, which is 90% funded by pharma, is pushing Ozempic on 6-year-olds?
So Kelly,
that is what the medical authorities are doing.
Why not then use the power that you guys have to push the existing infrastructure in that direction instead of slashing it altogether?
It's not slashing. It's taking it back to 2017 levels. That's not slashing. The amount of bureaucrats.
More like 2002 levels, actually.
In many cases, it's actually just not that much. But it is cutting. What is it? 20,000 people. It's taking it back to. It's taking the HHS back to 68,000 employees. It is absolutely like the idea that Bobby Kennedy should not come in and make dramatic changes to the leadership and the personnel at these authorities that have overseen an abject devastation of American health, which the lobbyists in this room do not have the humility to admit that we have gone completely wrong. The lobbyists in this room laughing when we have the sickest children in the developed world If you guys, if that is your attitude, and your attitude is to tell the MAHA moms that their votes and their voice is not legitimate, that we need dramatic changes to American healthcare. If you think it is illegitimate for Bobby Kennedy to not make big changes to people like Peter Marks, who once again and again went against FDA advisory opinions, who fired the two top vaccine makers, the two top vaccine scientists at the FDA for suggesting that we shouldn't mandate COVID shots for soldiers, who continually went against expert opinion in favor of the pharmaceutical industry, who many people here were collaborating with him with. The fact that somebody like that can't be fired and he can't install tremendous people like Marty McCary and Jay Bhattacharya and Dr. Oz to start reforming these agencies and put in their people, of course he should do that. That's what people voted for.
So I've made it
There it
clear.
is.
If you
Wow.
Yep. I mean, that's what we voted for, right? Some of the craziest stats I've seen is just how much more money we've been spending and how much higher our head count has been at these agencies over the last 30 years, corresponding with far worse outcomes in our healthcare, increasing costs in our healthcare. It's outrageous. So we totally voted for this. It might not even be the smoothest transition, but it has to transition. So I'm sure most of us here really support what's going on.
You know, a common narrative that I see is, of course, the hate for the billionaires. Hate for the billionaires. They're stealing our money, so on and so forth. But a lot of what we don't realize with the medical system is that it all gets eaten up by middlemen. So it's not, Goliath at the top of the mountain. Yes, big corporations and so on and so forth. But, if you look at the, what is it called? The PBCMs, the middlemen in the pharmaceutical industry that do this huge, insane, like thousands of dollar markups on medications is just like, it's killing us. And I've been following a guy that runs a compound pharmacy recently, and he does these great short videos where he shows how much it costs to go through him without insurance, or if you were to actually, go down to Walgreens and so on and so forth. And when you start adding these dollars up, I mean, we're talking in the millions and billions per drug that Medicaid and Medicare are being overcharged for these things. It's just the numbers. It's hard to imagine the numbers. It's like the vastness of space almost, how much we are getting ripped off.
Seriously. Yeah, it's outrageous. I am seeing a post in the Pill that's making me really sad. It looks like the Dr. Stella thing at the CDC might have been an April Fool's joke. So I hate April Fools on Twitter. Oh my God. I hate it so much.
Are you serious? You
I
got
hate
April
it.
fooled?
I hate it so much. It's friggin' useless. But that's okay because we still got major wins and we're still moving forward really quick on that front. So whatever.
Hey, Kimberly, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How's everybody else? I just wanted to come up and say, the PMBs or whatever they are, whenever there's a broker involved,
yes,
those are the ones that are stealing your money, whether it's a data broker or a pharmaceutical broker, insurance broker. The middleman is taking the biggest cut.
Totally. And, I just want to point out real quick, because I know he's not the most popular figure on the right, but Mark Cuban's been talking about this like a lot for the last year or so. And he created the website Cost Plus Drugs specifically to make generic drugs way more affordable and accessible to the American people. So even if we don't like him for other reasons, I think that's a wonderful project. And I'm glad he's been championing that issue. It's an olive branch. You know what I mean? It's really, really important. I think we had Brianna and then Southern Belle. I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks. So on the front of compounding pharmacies, this is the part that I really am struggling with today's Democratic Party. Even from the 1940s when the Democratic Party split over the rise of centralized authority and essentially fascism within the Democratic platform, right? We have seen this push for more nationalist policies, more federalism, more centralized authority. This is the part that I really can't wrap my brain around because, for example, during the last 2 years of the Biden administration. And in fact, if you go onto the Federal Register and you look up HHS right now, there are over 10 different policies that were part of the February unified agenda that would have essentially made compounding pharmacies illegal to operate in many ways, right? It would have regulated them essentially out of existence on behalf of these massive pharmaceutical companies and and middlemen, as you guys are talking about. And I can't understand how the Democratic Party today, or the left, can simultaneously be against billionaires, but then not understand the regulatory relationship where these agencies are working to help these corporations not only become massive monopolies, but then regulate competition out of existence. It just baffles my brain.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. It's what I like to term political bullshit. It seems obvious, at least since the Clinton era, that the Democrats sold out to corporations in order to gain and maintain power. And so they talk a big game. They're telling their constituents what they think they want to hear, but they're not actually living up to what they're saying. And that's not uncommon on the left or the right. But the Democrats, it really seems, have been extremely egregious about it. They take that money just like anybody else and then pretend they're for the people. And it seems like it's BS. Kim?
Well, we saw it with it was one of the hearings, right, where they were talking about how much money Bernie Sanders is getting from the pharmaceutical companies, how much money that, Pocahontas is getting from the and the other thing about these brokers, especially in this industry, is that the health insurance companies own these little brokerage companies. So they're basically stealing money from the transaction, because it's not the manufacturers that are really making the money. They provide all these crazy rebates, but the PBMs, or whatever they're called, they suck all those rebates out, so they never get to the customer.
Yep. Doesn't surprise me at all. Do us a favor and follow all the speakers and the hosts and Club MAHA. And we'll go Southern Belle, Ed, and then America Mission.
I'm in the medical industry. They're called pharmacy benefit managers, and they are greedy, super greedy. Here's a tactic when you go to a pharmaceutical counter. You may have insurance, you may have discount cards or rebates or something. Before you talk about insurance, ask them what the drug costs. Because the minute you start talking about insurance, they can't go beyond with alternatives, okay? It's just their rule. Ask them what the cost of the medication is. If it's ridiculous, then with my insurance, what will be my out-of-pocket cost? Because we have copays we have to worry about as well. Now, here's the thing that's happening at Walmart and all the big chains. They do not want to lose a customer. So if you're standing there and that price is still prohibitive for you, ask what they can do. Do they have other programs? A lot of times they have their white coats on. They have a couple cards in their pocket. That's another opportunity to reduce your price at the pharmacy, because they don't want to lose you as a customer. And their biggest loss of customer is when a patient walks in to get a drug prescribed by a specialty doctor like cardiac, whatever. Usually has a high copay. So start with price out of pocket, then your insurance cost out of pocket, or other options that will bring that price down, because they want to keep you as a customer. If you notice, when you go into a drugstore, you got to walk all the way to the back. In Walmart, because we deal with so many seniors who are the highest users or chronic care patients, they have it in the middle of the store, and they have it around women's clothing. Why? Because women are the ones usually picking up the medications and they live longer. So everything's strategic, but there is a way to cut your costs. The pharmacy benefit managers I'm furious with Medicaid and Medicare, because with the VA and Tri-State, we actually have a PBM that's in their process. So they're not dealing with an external PBM. And some of these PBMs are now owned by the drug chains. So they have their own food chain now to the insurance companies. And this is something that I can scream all day, but why can't we have PBMs like the VA does for Medicare and Medicaid? And I don't understand that. And I'm hoping that's a change.
Yeah, Belle, can you explain to us what exactly they do as a middleman? It kind of reminds me of the scene in Office Space where they bring in the Bobs to make everybody interview for their jobs. Like, what exactly would you say you do here?
Well, what they do is, hold on one second. I'm responding to a text with a client. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, let me get back to you in just a couple minutes. I've got to take care of this. Okay.
No problem at all, Belle. Thank you so
thank you.
much. Ed?
Yeah, and agriculture, back in, it's like Bobby's talked about this. Back in the 60s and stuff, we had Earl Butz, who was Republican, who brought out the get big, get out. And that's where a lot of the big ag money was going to the GOP. And then about 1980, 82, about there, that's when the Democrats realized we need to do that too. So it went away from the JFK sort of stuff that Bobby talks about when they were kind of fighting with us, because like up in where I am, up in the Northeast, we really had the back to the land movement, the hippie farmers, it was the liberal, it was the save the local farm, all that sort of stuff. And, it was Democrats leaders that we were getting some attention with, but then they realized they couldn't compete unless they took the corporate money. And that's when, as Bobby says, it became a duopoly. And then they just they get funded by both sides. One industry might give a little more to the Republicans, another one might give a little more to the Democrats, but they tend to give to both to capture both.
We need to get corporate money out of politics.
Right. That's the big problem.
Yeah, and Citizens United is a whole big topic we could talk about. I have no idea what the plan is to take that down. I get worried that over focusing on it can zap our resources and our ability to address other issues. But it's so important that, like, how do we fold it into what we're doing and not let it take over what we're doing, so we can't do all the other important work at the same time?
Yeah, and what you were talking about, about getting a quarter cow or something like that, that's a really simple principle, because the farmer only gets, on the average, I think, 15 cents on the average food dollar, and it all gets eaten up by the middlemen in the supermarkets. And of course, if you think, we have people like, for example, with beef, you can order online or you can go to a farmer's market, but those aren't very efficient for the farmer. It's a hell of a lot easier for them. They can give you a wholesale price if you save them a lot of time.
Sure.
If they've got to sit at a farmer's market for 6 hours and load the truck and unload the truck and all that, or they've got to put it all in boxes and bring it with labels and bring it to the shipper and all that costs them time and money. And so that's where, if you can co-op groups, I know Joel Salatin does that, and a couple other farmers, Gabe Brown does that. They'll bring, you can either go to his place, or he'll find a co-op of people, and they share, like, this week it'll be my garage, next week it'll be somebody else's garage, and you just set a time for them to deliver you the whole order, and then you divide it up. Yeah, and it's just economics.
The economics exactly is really interesting to me, because when you do it that way and cut out a bunch of middlemen and processors and everything else, what you end up with is the rancher or the farmer making more money and the consumer still spending less money. So I think it's a huge win in both directions. I love co-op models. and sort of group purchasing and things like that. Those are other sorts of ideas that I think are very amenable to both the left and the right, because it's still capitalism, right? It's still free market. It's still using dollars for trade, but it's collectivist as well. It really is, because it's communities coming together and taking care of each other. So those are sort of the olive branch issues where I feel like we can take the politics out of it and just say, hey, this works better for all of us. I think we've got Kelly J.
You betcha. And
Hey.
you're the backup that Kelly J is streaming today down on the bottom. So anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know we are streaming today again to QUX TV, to X Live Broadcast, to Rumble, Pilled, Kick, and YouTube. Trying them again. And the other thing is that I noticed I did have the April Fool's Day joke up on the screen. So thanks, Kristina. I took that one down. It's replaced with the Mark Cuban Cost Plus. So thank you.
Yeah, sweet. And thanks to multiple people letting me know that was an April Fool's joke. It takes a village to keep us all on track with good information. So I appreciate it.
And we're really blessed to have Brianna on the speaker panel today. I did just post a link to her beef initiative that allows you to shop local beef. And so check that out, guys.
Yeah, and so Bree is here with Beef Initiative, and Carrie is also here, who's the one that mentioned she's got a community group that does group buying for beef. I want to get to them and really dive into that here in just a moment, but I did want to hear from Southern Belle about how PCBs actually work in the market, and then maybe let Peaceful Warrior say a little bit too, and then we can jump into the other topic.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that earlier.
No problem.
They're pharmacy benefit managers. What they do is, okay, you have a hospital. They have to buy their pharmaceuticals. They use the PBM to negotiate for their formulary, the drugs that they'll have in the hospital or at a drugstore. They call it a formulary, their mixture of drugs. What they'll do is they will go to the manufacturers to negotiate the price, build rebate programs from the manufacturers, then bring it through. But the problem is the PBMs want to make a lot of money. So they add on to that cost for their service. It goes to the pharmacy. When you go to get your drug, they're getting paid and they're making way too much money. They're making more money than the pharmacy a lot of times. Now think about that. They're providing a real service. This is a go-between. I'm going to put something in the purple pill. It's called Single Care. It is a discount card. And what's great about them is the founder of the company, before he sold it, he's the one that did the online starting to book your flights and hotel rooms. I can't think of the name of it. He built that out. He wanted to do the same thing in the pharmaceutical industry to cut out all the PBMs. And Single Care bought them. And what they do is they eliminate all the PBMs. They go directly to the manufacturers and negotiate the price, and then go to the pharmacy. And then you have your card. And what's great about the card, once you use it, because they swipe it like a credit card, it's attached to your patient file at the pharmaceutical location. And you can use that card in every location except independent drugstores. They are not part of the program. They don't do enough volume in order to support that cost reduction. And there's other cards as well. And sometimes one card is better than the other, but you can go online, punch in, they'll pull up a map and it will show the locations of the different places and it will actually show your price of product. So when you go in, you know exactly what it's going to cost on that card. So I'll put these different cards in the purple pill for y'all. And
please go ahead and post them up in the nest too. Do you know how to do that?
I don't know how to do that.
You know, once you post it in the purple pill,
right.
if you click the share button on the post, the top option for sharing should show the title of this space. And if you click that, it goes right up into the nest.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. I will do that.
Then that's super helpful.
But what's great about the PBMs is we can, like CVS Caremark is one of the biggest ones. So they're attached to CVS. So think about that. But going in and negotiating directly, we're able to bring price down. Now, pricing is different in all the market because it depends on their volume of purchasing. But Single Care has an algorithm that goes out and capture pricing, and they'll continue to renegotiate with the manufacturers. They get beat by certain other places, other cards, but you have 2 or 3 of these, you can get your price and then you're locked in. And but also catch it in about 3 to 4 months if you're on a chronic care medication. Keep an eye on that product price because sometimes the cards will up the price because they've captured you as a patient. Okay. So just kind of watch for that and have options. And let me tell you something. They're very experienced to work with this at the register, at the pharmacy counter, because a lot of times with seniors, they're very embarrassed to take somebody's time, the older baby boomer, and they don't want to look like they're not taking care of their business. They make it very kind for them because they don't want to lose them as a patient, and they also don't want to lose their retail shopping as well. So this is a business to them, and they want to help the patient. And I test it all the time because I go in and try products before I'll add them into our bag for our reps. And this has saved a lot of money, and the doctors love it because they have better patient compliance because they can afford to get their medication, they're timely at getting it. And what's great about these cards, a lot of the primary offices and other specialties that have experience with it now, they'll actually call around and make sure you're getting the best price, and they'll hand you the card and you can go get it here at this price. So there's a resource management that we've developed in office-based and also checking out of a hospital. Because a lot of people go over to the hospital pharmacy and feel like they're signing their financials away, where we can get them a better price. And they want compliant patients because they don't want them back in the emergency department in less than 30 days again.
Yeah.
So this is a win for everybody is what I'm trying to get across. So I'll put it in there for you, and thank you for letting me take this time.
Oh, I appreciate it. No, it's good information. And of course, I think most people in the MAHA movement really want to get us off of pharmaceuticals as much as possible. Food is medicine, exercise, getting sunshine, getting your feet and your hands in the dirt. All these things that can prevent us from having to take pharmaceuticals to begin with, but there's still very much a place for it. I think it was just really co-opted by giant corporate interests, and now they want to get you on them and keep you on them. But if we can get that sort of a mentality out of it, we'll really be able to pare this down to finding which medications are helpful as opposed to more natural remedies and preventative care to begin with. One of the things you mentioned that really sticks out to me is that the small independent pharmacies can't participate in some of these programs because they don't do enough volume. And so we talked just a moment about like buying cooperatives and things like that earlier. I think about that sort of a model, not just on the super local level, but also on a level just above, not just like local pharmacies, but I think about your small one-off organic grocery stores and stuff. They don't do a lot of volume, so the prices are always higher than if you went to Walmart or something else to find some organic goods. And I don't see why you couldn't have essentially like collectively owned distributors that exist a step above these independent shops that can sort of operate as the group buyer for all these independent shops to do volume to bring the price down so they can compete. And it seems like that would be a way to get them involved in like the PBMs when it comes to pharmaceuticals, and even when it comes to meat and produce and other sorts of grocery goods when you're talking about those little food co-ops and independent grocery stores.
The challenge in medical is the FDA regulations, all those different things. But it is a thought because one of the things we were talking about right before COVID hit was how do we help these independent pharmacies, because especially in rural areas or extreme dense urban areas, like in New York City, it's hard to put a CVS in there, but there'll be a bodega.
Right.
And this is, but because they're going to walk, they're a walking traffic. So they're around dense markets so they can survive. And we've done special programs for them in the rural market areas. That may be the closest medical entity to a patient where their primary care doctor is 4 hours away. So the independent pharmacies have like an extended relationship. And before COVID, and these are things that I'm going to be bringing back, programs where we can bring them into the independent pharmacies, where we can do different things with a nurse in there. and do programs like that. So we're working through that, and it's a process with a lot of moving parts and regulatory that we have.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'll bet we could probably look at Mark Cuban and how he did cost plus drugs. Of course, his business is predicated on web sales, but he did that in part to get the PBMs sort of out of the way, right? We might be able to model something on that.
Yeah, he did that. He kicked out the PBMs. He's worked strictly with certain drugs. He doesn't have all the drugs. He does,
and he adds more as he can, and they're probably just negotiating over time.
Yeah. And also, too, just one other thing: when you get a prescription from your doctor, is this generic or what? And qualify it, because they may just be giving you the newest and greatest because they want to sample some of their patients. That's how they start moving into the new drug release. Is I'm going to take 10 patients, I'm going to try it with them, get their feedback, and if I have satisfaction with it, then I'm bringing it across to all my patients.
Yeah,
so qualify that. Well, can I not take a generic?
Yeah.
So you can do that, and that'll help you cut costs as well.
I got screwed on that accidentally with a doctor about a year and a half ago when I was trying pharmaceuticals to deal with my ADHD. None of them ended up working, but we were bouncing around between different drugs to try stuff. And he just accidentally gave me like name brand Adderall or one of them one time. And instead of it costing me $15, it was like $200 out of pocket. And that really, really hurt. And there was totally a generic for like $15. He just oopsed. And it happens, you know? Anyway, Peaceful, you've been super patient, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I just want to say, I think maybe Carrie was ahead of me. Did Carrie speak already?
No, and Carrie, if you've got something on this topic, awesome. Carrie, I connected with her in the one of the MAHA group chats about her group that does group buying for beef, and we're going to get into that once we bring this topic to a close. Right. Carrie, was your comments on the beef stuff?
Well, I'm always focused on health. I happen to be a nurse, so I do have.
Oh, cool! Yeah, jump in here.
Years and years of experience of assisting in more of the medical realm while bridging it into real holistic health. But no, I'm more talking about. So if you're going to finish up talking about pharmaceuticals,
oh no, go for it. You're bearing two weapons. I love it. You're like, I can shoot this one out of the sky a little bit and then transition right in.
Okay, I'll be the segue. So I am a nurse. I come from a long line of healthcare providers who also happen to carry old world healing information from the old world. It was always passed on, grandmothers to grandmothers, generally grandmothers to mothers to daughters. But I do come along with that. So actually, when I was in nursing school and I graduated at 18, the things that I wrote about was, everybody should be receiving health care in the place where they most want to. At that point, everybody was in nursing homes or hospitals. There was the big jump from doctors who used to, and nurses who used to visit people in their homes just because that's the way it was done, to immediately everybody was either in a hospital or a nursing home. So anyway, the idea of health is natural. We are naturally healthy. We're born naturally healthy. And if we choose to understand where our natural, historic, evolutionary diet is, and we stick with that and stay away from man-made chemical combinations, we'll be healthier with every breath. So that's basically where I come from. But I've been a nurse for over 40 years. And I've been a farmer also for all of my life. Although as a child, my parents' parents were farmers. Some of them coming from Finland and the other ones from Germany. But they did have farms here in the United States. But my parents were the first college educated. And so they had those types of professions. So when we moved out of, as a child, I recognized farms were leaving. I had to figure out something to try and save farms. So that's kind of one of the quests I've been on, aside, as well as trying to support and fuel the concept of holistic health and working within the living web of life. So I just actually got off the phone with another business call of somebody who I totally agree. And I have more people who eat my beef, Sentinel Farms Heart Healthy Beef. I have more vegetarians, vegans, religious following, halal and kosher individuals who only eat my beef and nobody else's, and people who've been vegetarian for 30 years but they will eat my beef, because I understand anybody who is choosing to not eat life, whether it's, I don't care, plant or animal, is equally meaningful to me. If you're choosing not to eat life that has not been treated with respect and with love and has been doused with chemicals and kept in a tight box and never experienced the beautiful wind on their on their leaves or on their cheeks, or being able to grow up in their family herd so that they have a joyful life. Life is supposed to be enjoyed by all of life. And the crazy, fun thing, paradoxical thing about it, that even though I cry every time I harvest one of my animals, because I've raised them from a baby. Babies are about to show up next week. We're into calving season, close to it. I cry every time I harvest because I've raised these animals. They all have unique personalities. They all have names. Nobody has ear tags because they're all individuals just like we are. I mean, in the old days, there was the thing about, you can't tell all the honkies, all the white people look the same, all the black people look the same, all the people with Asian background, they all look the same. That's just all because we don't pay attention and really see people in life for who it is. Everybody's fully unique. There's no two identical things in the world. So when people come and say, how can you tell all these 100 animals apart? And how do you know their herd? I'm like, well, because you live with them. I mean, you have 6 kids. Do they all look the same to you? When we choose to tune in and actually take part and live and breathe and touch and be aware of the living web of life, we just become healthier. And we become so grateful, and we become so humble to recognize that we are just a link in the sharing of energy. And for people who say, how could you possibly name your animals? No, you shouldn't name your animals. That's got to be too hard. I'm like, well, no, you shouldn't. Taking life should never be easy. It should always come with great contemplation and with purpose. And every bit of that life as it moves forward. One of my things is why people choose to eat my beef is that my animals never experience a moment of fear or stress. Am I blathering on to?
No, this is wonderful, I think.
Carrie, this is anecdotal from me, but if I eat beef that I know has gone through a lot of stressors and everything else, I swear it gives me anxiety. I'm very sensitive.
I am. Yeah, absolutely. That's not bizarre at all.
Yeah, and I think the science backs it up. One, that the cortisol levels and the stress levels in the processing process are one thing, but I really do believe everything else that you're saying about if the animal has, lived a good life and if that processing is done right, it's less stressful. I can eat that meat and my anxiety levels won't spike, but I notice that if I eat too much, commercial standard meat, my anxiety levels will spike. I don't know if it's in my head. I don't have an actual study.
It's not. It's not in your head at all. And nobody should be eating commercialized meat or commercialized anything where we have somehow rationalized that treating life as
a commodity.
A Kleenex, worse than to commoditize life in and of itself is it's just seriously, I'm not a big, if I ever happen to use the word sin, like I'll use it right now, the word sin means missing the target. It means turning away from the light. It's not all the other crazy baggage that people.
I love that. I say that a lot too. The original meaning of the word sin was to like, I think it was an archery term. It meant to miss the mark.
Right. And then also, I'm a farmer. I'm surrounded by tradespeople. I love learning about the trades, and I've owned a construction company, so I do have some experience in that area, and from laying tile to putting on a roof, all that kind of stuff. But knowing how things work, knowing how things are put together, are confidence building. To have no clue and just say, oh, well, there's just too many people in the world, and we have to do it this way. We have to have GMO crops. We have to have acres upon acres of monoculture, which is completely antithetical to life. And clearly so, because then they have to use tons of chemicals to try and keep it living, because some organism out there is going to say, oh, look, 1,000 acres of pineapples. Let's focus on this and we'll take this whole crop down. So diversity is part of creation. And when we can live in a diverse, even like when you're gardening, you have a patch of lettuce over here and then you have some onions over here. You don't have to have an acre of onions and then an acre of this. When we're acting as stewards of the garden, and recognizing that, have some alum plants or here and there all over the place, and they repel your onions, your chives, your shallots, your garlics. They will help repel bugs throughout your garden. So have a patch of them here and have a patch of them there. Have some marigolds over here. The diversity, we feed upon life, and we are part of that. We're supposed to give and we're supposed to take. If we only are takers, that's not healthy. If we're only givers, that's not healthy either.
And it's been a very taker society for a while now, huh?
Yeah, it really has. And then we have so with my beef there, and we can get into the science, because I did pop out. I was born a science geek, and I was also born part horse, and I'm part tree, all that kind of stuff. I grew up in the woods for all kinds of important reasons. But when we are programmed, I believe we are fully programmed to love, because when we do love, everything is enriched. If you love your garden, if you talk to your plants, if you actually see the beauty, it's very easy to talk to your plants. When you see the beauty of how your plant is growing, and you tell it that your vibration, this is actually science, your positive, loving vibration caresses and embraces that being. And they're like, don't we all love to be told that we're doing our best? We're beautiful. We're a beautiful enrichment to the world. We all need to hear that. I used to say, especially in nursing, everybody needs a hug and a kiss every day. And so my clients, whoever they were, they're always offered, would you like a hug and a kiss? Because I certainly need one. And not everybody does want one, but I can tell you, there's so many people out there who are never touched, who are never given the embrace of a kiss on the cheek.
I bet you have some spoiled cows.
I have spoiled cows, spoiled chickens, spoiled cats. Everybody here is a big kisser. That even my bulls, you can come into my herd of bulls, and they are the most gentle, actually, of everybody, because they know how big and strong and masculine they are, and they're so gentle, and they love scratches and they love kisses. So that is the thing. When it is time for a harvest, there is times for harvest. Everybody has their time. And as painful as it is for me, I know that animal has had the most beautiful life, has had most beautiful relationships. At this moment, they'll be separated. They'll be just with me or with their other good friend who's going to be harvested at the same time. They're eating their own bucket of alfalfa cubes, which to them is like dark chocolate. So they actually do have an endorphin rush going. Besides, they're getting all of my attention. I'm rubbing them down. Full of endorphins. Endorphins scientifically are smoothers of our system. Wherever you have inflammation, you get some endorphins throwing in there, and your inflammation will go down.
Now, where is your farm?
Vermont, Starksboro,
Oh.
Vermont. You can go to Unbound Grace. Actually, that was one of my other meetings this morning. I'm usually out in the farm, but it's like, Carrie, you got to handle some of this stuff. Unboundgrace.org is the website. So we're just doing trying to get it.
Yeah. So Carrie, can you tell us a little bit about the group that you mentioned to me and how you get beef to people at like affordable prices?
Well, and here's the other thing. This is another conversation. And I say this to farmers all the time. And I never intend to, I don't even care, because this is my passion. This is my calling. Farmers are never reimbursed for really a moment of their labor.
Mm-hmm.
So we should not be in a race to the bottom, because caring for food, caring for our highly nutritive foods while they are living and afterwards, is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not mechanized, it's not chemicalized, it's not getting USDA lots of money to support you buying chemicals from the chemical companies.
Yep, and there's only limited economies of scale to keep it in the value system that you're describing of how to care for it.
Right. I mean, and people have to realize. So I also do youth programming here, and I have we're celebrating 20 years of it here now, and so I actually raise beef because I'm a beef eater, and I have been for hundreds of thousands of years, and I want to do it in a responsible way and also a healthy way for the grounds. I've reclaimed a farm that was harvested, raped of all of its soil, gravel, sand, and left unattended. It was a complete disaster. So my last 20 years have been every single day nurturing this neglected piece of ground into something that's producing the highest health, highest nutritive value, clean beef you can find anywhere. So what I do is primarily I sell my beef by the half. I do have people who I've started something else for people who have like a farmlet, a backyard farm, and maybe they're wanting to do some gardening, but they've managed to fence their area. And so they'll take on a few of my animals for the summer. And they're able to, not have to brush hog all of their fields. They're getting nutrient-rich soils. They're using some of that for their own gardens. And so then we work something out for the harvest, because those animals will be harvested at the end of that season. But primarily I sell by the half. And then sometimes people only want a quarter, just for recognition sake. A quarter, if you have one of the old-fashioned, they're all different now. Old-fashioned refrigerator with the freezer on top, not an enormous thing, an old-fashioned one. The freezer on top will generally hold an empty one, about a quarter of an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you have an idea of size.
Okay.
So when people want a quarter, I will break up a quarter, but as a farmer who's generally always 365 outside all day, I do help. I mean, like, if you can find somebody who you work with, if you can find your neighbor, maybe your sister or brother, who might want to share that half with you, it works better for the farmer if somebody buys it by the half.
Sure. And does a chest freezer hold a half?
A chest freezer that is, how many cubic feet is that?
7.5.
Well, let's say the refrigerator underneath of that, old-fashioned freezer. So if old-fashioned refrigerator with a freezer on top, that space in a chest freezer is, not your tiniest chest freezer, but it's still a small chest freezer. That will generally fit a half if you take it out of the
Gotcha.
box.
So a chest freezer probably holds about a half. I want to bring Bree in here, and I want to introduce you to Carrie. This is Bree from the Beef Initiative. They have a wonderful, they have a wonderful website where they have a map of ranchers all over the country and help people source high quality meat. So this is nice. Bree, say hi.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, we would love to chat with you and get you connected with Beef Maps. If you guys would be interested in having a listing on our website, we'd love to have you. So we do some onboarding. I would send you over to Ranch Mama Shannon. She'd ask you some questions. We make sure that all of our ranchers are mRNA, free, whether it's hogs, and potentially the cattle industry in the future. Obviously, mRNA is not in the cattle industry currently, but we're looking at some things coming down the pipeline. So really just depending on that, and then we like to make sure that the ranchers that we support through the beef initiative are, regenerative. And yeah, so and it sounds like you're doing all those things. So we would really love to support you and put you up on beef maps if you're interested. And yeah, I think it is important to understand how the regulatory landscape breaks down and why it's so important to buy half a cow, having that chain of custody. And I'll give you just a really small example. So 95% of our domestic meat supply goes through just 5 facilities. And those are the USDA certified facilities. So here's the kicker, right? When you buy half a cow and you get it back, it's custom exempt processed. And so it will come back with a label that says not for sale. And this is kind of the rub, right? This is the rub with centralized control. The USDA sort of bottleneck has created this, regulatory overreach, I should say, has created this bottleneck within our processing access in the livestock industry. So there's twofold issues with this. One is that any one of these 5 domestic processing facilities is doing about, on average, 5,400 head of cattle per day, about 1,200 head of hogs per hour, right? And that's versus going to a custom exempt slaughter facility, and that one cow goes into the processing, right? And that one cow comes out, and you know exactly what's coming out. You know exactly what went in, exactly how it was raised. And what's really fascinating about this is if you go into the ERS data through the USDA, look at the dashboard for foodborne illnesses, for example, there are zero reported instances of on-farm slaughter or custom exempt slaughter, state, certified processing. These are all far superior in terms of health and food safety than the USDA. Yeah, than the USDA processing facilities are. So if you're really worried about what it is that you're getting, and that's not even having the whole MCOOL, country of origin labeling discussion. But if you're really, worried about what you're getting in your food, your best option is to know your cow, go to the rancher directly, and make sure that you're supporting practices that you actually want to see transition to your dinner table. And that is actually the healthiest, safest pipeline, is that chain of custody, right? Having that knowledge.
And Bree, just to contrast that, when you buy a burger at McDonald's, if I understand correctly, there can be like 1,000 cows in there because they mix them all together in these massive facilities. And I've heard that that's partially done to obfuscate responsibility if there's any sort of an issue with the meat. It's harder to track back to where it came from.
Right. So I haven't heard up to 1,000, but I've definitely seen multiple reports of up to 100 different cows in one burger. There's even been reported instances of, and this is so far-fetched, it's hard for me to repeat, but human DNA, rat DNA in these burger patties.
Well, the rat DNA makes sense, right? Because there's stuff like in peanut butter and things like that. There's actually like an FDA-approved amount of like cockroach and stuff like, I mean, it's gross. It's super gross. But when you're talking about these large facilities, just for practicality's sake, stuff's going to get in. And so they came up with like you're allowed to have this much in it sort of a situation, which is absurd. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's okay. That's a perfect example, primary example. And if you just go through and you look at, like, just pull up recent articles, right? Like there was a recent article where Tyson had sued the USDA because the USDA inspector wouldn't even get out of her car. She just filled out these certification cards because it was a Tyson facility, she just sat in her cart and filled them out and said all of it was good, you know, did not get out of her car to go and actually inspect the facility. And this is the issue, right, with the USDA in general, is you have the selectionism and protectionism. But I digress, right? You can find these primary examples. There was another instance not long ago where where an individual, well, I don't want to get into this. It's actually very gross. Point is, just stick with local processing, local ranchers, keep it to that one-to-one basis. One cow in, one box out.
And it's like when we're talking about these movements that are really frustrated with government agencies, which are taken over by corporations, and we don't really want to fund either of them, the most direct way to do so is to stop giving them our money. So we're getting better products from people in our local community. That money is going to our local community. A lot more of that money is staying in our local community. It really is two birds with one stone.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a whole flock of birds. I mean, though we're feeding the birds. I mean, when you think about it, because I primarily pasture, I do harvest some hay off of my own farm. And when I was smaller, I harvested more hay. But because I primarily pasture my farm, for winter months, I am keeping 5 of my other farmer friends in business by purchasing their quality hay.
Yep.
And without me, nobody else is, you know,
and that's local economies for you.
It's absolute local economies. And talking about the cleanliness, 2 people have touched your beef, and you know, let's say I'm harvesting Dennis the Menace. You know, you're getting back half of Dennis. And I also suggest that, you know, every time you intake Dennis, you say grace and say, thank you, Dennis, for having such an absolutely beautiful life and transferring your robust and vibrant health into me and my family. And I will use and not waste any of this life.
God, I love that so much.
Which is so sacred.
I love that so much. I do want to get Ed and Peaceful Warrior back in here. They've been super patient too. Ed?
Yeah, one thing that used to happen, we all know about storage lockers. They're all over the place. Well, wasn't that many years ago, 50s, 60s, they kind of started to leave a bit because of the, you know, refrigeration and freezing was a lot more limited for years. Right down 2 miles down the road, there was a cold storage and frozen food locker. So, in other words, you'd have a little space, whatever size space you wanted in that frozen food locker. And so that was, you know, when people used to freeze their meat, you know, then they made this thing, well, you got fresh meat at the supermarket. Well, it's really not that fresh. It's often not aged properly or aged at all. You do a lot better when you age it properly and then properly freeze it and store it and thaw it properly. So we could really, I mean, I think in my area in Western Mass, we started a food processing center for fruits and vegetables. So there's more and more frozen foods and vegetables.
You know, I heard that about frozen produce versus fresh produce. We think fresh produce is better, but oftentimes it's not, because if it was frozen properly on site, it's technically fresher because it didn't sit out nearly as long.
Right. And even canned, you know, there's a lot of good things. I mean, tomato sauces, pickles, all that sort of stuff. We started a local processing center a number of years ago to be able to give local farmers value added in that sort of stuff.
Now, when you say canned, do you mean like aluminum cans or do you mean like mason jars?
Could be both, depending on, you know, what it is. I mean, certainly jarred is when you can, especially if you can recycle them, is better. Just like in the old days, there was a canning kitchen, and even up till about 15 or 20 years ago, there was a number of people that they went with church kitchens because church kitchens can be approved, and so then they just bought some canning supplies. And, you know, small scale processing, and a bunch of people would get together in harvest season with their canning jars and make a whole bunch of stuff out of the local produce that was cannibal.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so,
And we've gotten a little bit away from churches providing those sorts of community services, which is a shame. But there's also been a movement, especially in city environments, where like co-ops form and they get access to a commercial kitchen and they do that kind of stuff. So it really circles right back around to things community members can do. They can circle up and they can focus on providing these things for their community where it's not being provided except for these really horrible corporate options.
And one of the biggest things of recent science that we've been, for many, many years, they kept telling us that it doesn't matter how you grow something, it'll be basically a nutrition will be about the same. And we kept saying that's ridiculous.
I knew that was BS.
Pink tomatoes in a McDonald's burger that doesn't taste like anything. There's no way they can be as nutritious as something grown in really healthy soil with a healthy biome and everything. And it took the Bionutrient Food Association about 6 or 7 years ago, actually about 10 years ago now, to start actually doing the science of it. And it's amazing. We thought maybe 50%, 100% different. It can be 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 times different in certain things like oranges. Some of the commercial oranges have like no vitamin C in them at all. It's hardly detectable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's just like a huge, and that's the big thing we have to think about with organic too, because a lot of commercial organic, really nutrition wise, when we analyze it, sure, it doesn't have some of the chemicals in it. But as far as nutrition wise, that big scale stuff often is really bad too.
Yep,
And
not having the bad
regenerative organic has gone beyond that because it really gets that functioning biome, because they're not using the tillage that all, conventional and traditional organic. The problem was there's too much tillage involved.
Yep. Yeah, and especially when you could do things like rotation grazing with animal stock to sort of regenerate the soil.
And cover crops with your vegetables and fruits.
Yep. I want to let Rattlesnake get up here for a second. I hear they're part of the beef initiative, and then I want to get back to Peaceful Warrior.
Hey, yeah, we are part of the beef initiative. It's my husband, Matt, and I. Matt has been in a few spaces with Bree and beef initiative. And just a quick plug, there might be another space tonight with Bree with the beef initiative just to talk more about that. But to piggyback off of what Carrie and Bree were talking about, I think maybe Carrie or Bree brought it up about the different DNA profiles in your commercial beef. I think in one of these spaces, somebody brought up a study, and it's something that just really stuck with me, was that in 1 pound of ground beef, there was a study on that 1 pound of ground beef, and there was over 54 DNA profiles on that 1 ground beef. And who knows what was in those 54 DNA profiles, right? And just going back to, when you do buy from your rancher, you are getting 1 DNA profile in your beef, especially from us. And for the people that don't have a local economy for ranch, some people might be in downtown New York. We sent a box this week to someone that is just right across the street from Central Park. They don't have a ranch right around the corner or a local farm right around the corner. So a lot of people do need a beef maps or someone else to be able to ship them or to provide them with the clean beef that they're looking for. And so for us, and Shannon and Bree, we can teach you how to cook those cuts that you might not even know how to cook. Something that we say often is that we can teach you how to use your cow from nose to tail. And what a lot of people don't understand is that grocery stores teach you, or they're telling you how to shop. They're only putting out, if you notice a certain time of year, they're only putting out T-bone steaks. They're only putting out briskets. They're telling you what to buy. And if you're buying directly from a rancher, you can get cuts that you might not have seen in a couple of years out in the grocery store aisle. So,
and they even have different nutrient profiles, right?
Oh my gosh, toe to tail. I'm sorry, but the fact that you utilize, it goes back to like that Indian principle of using every part of the cow, and the fact that you're teaching people how. I just think that's so beautiful. I had to interject and celebrate.
Yeah,
that.
no, that's great. I totally agree. And the thing is, there's different nutrient profiles, right? Like most people aren't eating organ meats anymore, and I've noticed a little bit more seeing like ground beef that includes organ meats.
Yeah,
And that's
there's
probably
a
a
lot of
really
us.
nice way to get that in, because like I just added beef liver to my diet. I went carnivore about a month ago to heal my leaky gut, and I realized I needed some organ meats. And I tell you, I hate liver. Oh my God, it's so hard for me to choke down. But
Yeah, but you
I would-
can you
yeah.
could take that liver and dehydrate it and put it in a capsule form and just have it that way, and you could have some of the same nutrients. Sometimes that gets lost in the dehydration process, but
Also,
something else
I have a killer liver and onions. I've turned people who have never had liver and or are sure they hate it. They eat my liver and onions, which has just a little bit of maple syrup in it, and you can eat the entire thing yourself.
I would try it, Carrie. I'm adventurous enough to give things a go.
Come on down. Come on down.
I absolutely would. Peaceful, you were waiting for a while, bud. You still want to jump in here?
Yeah, if I could, I'm going to be circling around a couple of subjects, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. First of all, who was it? Carrie, I hope you don't have fava beans with that. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Just joking. Okay.
I know you mean, but no.
Okay. Anyway, just a little joke there. Okay, I'm going to be circling around a couple different things. Okay, first of all, pharmaceuticals. Getting back to the pharmacies, I think there's a card out there, and Southern would know this probably better than me, but I've seen it. I think it's called Good RX. So there's
Yes,
yeah,
that's a
there's
good
another
one.
one there.
Yes.
So and
Yeah, I put in the purple pill, GoodRx and Single Care. I've had good success with both of them. There's a list of other ones that I'm going to be checking out, but I put it
Okay,
all
great.
in, so you'll have it.
Thank you. And on that subject, I've noticed my pharmaceuticals, which I go through a big box store, if you will. I've noticed mine have gone down. I think Medicare might have worked some kind of a deal, because it's really gone down drastically. Some of the generics.
Yeah, part of it is negotiation with the manufacturers.
That's
Negotiate.
a good thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Locally, we have some independent pharmacies. I don't know how they stay above water, but God bless them. One of them is run by a state legislator who's in state government, along with his mother. They have a local, and then we have a local one that's kind of like I'm going to throw out real names here, so you know. They're called Fallon Wellness Center, and they do a lot of compounding for both animals and human beings. And again, they might be a little bit more pricey, and they might not take insurance, but they do the compounding, so which helps zero in on for your pets, and also for I didn't see much of a difference. One time I needed CBDs, and they were about like they were equivalent in pricing to the pet stores where they had CBDs on where they could sell them off the shelf. And that being said, let me circle around to something else here I was going to go for. Okay, I want to jump into the farming side of things. I have an acquaintance who he kind of like co-ops with local farmers. He has some land, but not a lot, and he does his own honeybees, and so he sells his own honey kind of on the side. But then he'll go to the local farmer, and he'll say, "Hey, can I put some beehives here?" So that it's kind of like a win-win situation. He does that, and then in terms of other things. Somebody brought up the having chives that grow wild. I've had some chives on my property. Somehow the wind got a hold of them, so I have a patch of chives here, a patch of chives there, and they come up miraculously every year. We also have watercress. We planted some watercress. They come up every year. I don't have to do a thing. We can pick all the watercress we want.
It's funny how food grows on trees, right?
It's weird. It's absolutely weird. Then I built what I call the tiger cage. I have a tiger cage way out back, and we used to put scallions and chives and things in there to keep it away from the animals. And it literally looks like a tiger cage. And I haven't used it lately, but we've got one of those out back. Me and the missus, we would go out and pick fern breaks. If anybody know what fern breaks are with the fiddler's heads, we would go and pick those. But we got in trouble one time. We got too close. We got too close to the Saratoga battlefield, and one of those guys came out that had a campaign hat on and strolled up to us and said, "What you doing?" I said,
"Was he in full Civil War gear with like bayonet and everything?"
Yeah,
like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?"
Yeah. Well, no, it was a park ranger, and he came out and he goes, "What are you picking?" I go, "Well, we're just basically picking weeds, if you want to know." He goes, "Well, you aren't here," and I had to produce my driver's license, and rather than giving us a full-blown ticket where we'd have to pay $150, he gave us a warning. He issued a warning ticket. I think I got it someplace hanging around, but so we got a scolding basically for picking weeds.
That was great. I love how you talked about kind of wildcrafting with the chives, and mint is another one. If you plant that by a stream, oh my goodness, you'll have a whole valley of mint.
But then watercress, you just can't kill it. It just keeps coming back every summer, and so that those are good things to know.
Yeah, my best friend's mom threw a bunch of squash seeds out in her backyard. Just threw them out there, and now she's got a whole patch.
Yeah.
Didn't even mean to grow that much. It just went wild.
Yeah, and staying with the farming thing, we have they're called Gem Farms Buffalo. They raise buffalo. They're about maybe 20 miles out from me, and it's called Castleton on the Hudson, meaning the Hudson River, and they sell buffalo meat. I'm not sure if they're still in business, but I think they are. But this Gem Farms Buffalo, I mean, we have all kinds of things around here. And both Ed and Carrie are probably, I won't say a stone's throw. I'm upstate New York in the capital region. Ed's out there in Massachusetts. Of course, Carrie's out there in Vermont.
Buddy, you're near me. I'm in Syracuse.
Who's that? Who's talking?
Kristina.
Oh, okay. Okay,
yeah.
Syracuse. So yeah, I'm capital region. I'm just outside of Albany, and
that's
stones.
Amazing.
It is almost a stone's throw when you talk about it.
Yeah, I grew up on a dairy farm out here. My grandparents have, and then my uncle bought the neighbor farm too. So we kind of have this whole like triangle in the local area, and he's on board. I love learning from you guys because I really think I can go talk to even my uncle and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing from the community. How can we implement it around here? Do you have any farmers I can send these guys' way?
Isn't it great?
Yeah,
totally.
Man.
And it's one of the great things about projects like Beef Maps, where because it's hard for someone to go and find individually what's close by.
Yeah.
But if there are good projects that are compiling all this really helpful information, then you just know to go there and pop in your zip code, and boom, you've got your options. Right? Like I was looking at what was it? Weston A. Price. They've got, I think it's realmilk.com. And that's a similar idea for dairy. And boom, I had 5 places within about 30 minutes to an hour from me that provide real high quality, locally raised dairy products.
Yeah. And we're getting to that point, like in May, most of our farmers markets will start to open up, so we can every Saturday or Sunday or whatever you can go out in our local park. They have one where they open up, and then in some of the cities like Troy, New York, they have huge farmers markets, so you can get all fresh stuff that you want.
I'd love to see us start doing stuff like going out to all of our local farmers markets and meeting the dairy producers and the meat producers that are there, and then connecting them back into these national repositories, these sort of like national maps. This is one of the things we can probably incorporate in the template for community groups.
Yeah. The last thing I'd like to talk about, and it's kind of an anomaly, if you will, are years ago when I was growing up, but you don't see them much anymore. We used to have monarch butterflies, which I think they went from Canada and upper New York State all the way down to Mexico. They stay in the wintertime down in Mexico and then would migrate back to the great Northeast here. Well, I don't hardly see them anymore. And it's
you got to plant milkweed, right?
Yeah, is it milkweed that attracts them?
Yeah, pleurisy root and milkweed. So I think there's like three different strains. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I am so big on this. I'd love to do a March of the Monarchs, kind of like digital campaign to find a seed grower that would even distribute these, so we can kind of look at their migratory plant pattern and plant along it. It's a side note, but that's a beautiful thing that we could do, because you're so right. They used to be everywhere.
They used to be prevalent in upper New York State, all over New York State, and now you hardly see them anymore. If you see one, it's like I said, it's an anomaly now. Now there is one that's local, and I mean extremely local, and I've been on my property almost 20 years, and I've only seen two of them. They're called the blue Carner butterfly. Blue Carner butterfly. And there's a patch where it's all mostly wooded area where the blue Carner down towards the Albany Guilderland area of New York State. They grow there, and that's it. That's where they are. And then they branch out. But I've only seen two on my property ever. And I tried to get a picture of one, and I didn't get it. But it's amazing. It's amazing that that the blue Carner is still around. So anyway, I'll close out there and land the helicopter. Thank you.
Peaceful, man. Thank you so much, man. Always love having you in the space.
Thank you.
That's really cool that came up, because there's just a bunch of things we can do, even in our own backyards, planting that milkweed and things like bat boxes. Bats are so cool. And they're great for dealing with mosquitoes and other pests, and their guano is extremely great for soil. Apiaries for people who aren't afraid of being near bees. These are things that if they're just peppered around a community, I can't even imagine how much benefit it generates for the local ecology. And then, like you say, for the monarchs, which migrate from Canada all the way down to like Mexico or Costa Rica, I think we have to reinvigorate their habitat, or they die off, and it's devastating. It's devastating to the ecosystem. And these are all aspects, including things like supporting your local rancher, that support not just our local economy. And economy is kind of an abstract concept that humans made up when we realized that barter doesn't scale and we need money as a medium of exchange, but the economy of life, right? The ecology aspect as well. And then we can start sort of like in some degrees decommodifying all these things and reversing this heavy corporate mentality and consumption driven mentality we've fallen into over the last 100 years.
I'd like to mention one thing really quick. There's a good friend of mine in the crowd. His name is Dogevan, and they've kind of used decentralized like Dogecoin to kind of support projects, and it's a place where people can rally around them. And they rescue dogs and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to go for it, because the meme coin came out. A lot of people started breeding these dogs and whatnot. It's like the 101 Dalmatians effect. But yeah, he went into action. He transports dogs all across the country on his own accord. Check him out. And they're working on a project to have a doji dog rescue. And so there's so much we can do when we work together with the power of community.
Yeah, totally. And I invited him up to speak if he wants to talk a little about the Doge Van project. We'd love to hear about it a little bit. Carrie?
I was just going to say that it's a difficult thing to change habits. And what we have learned and been taught to put in our mouth since we were sitting in a high chair is extremely deeply ingrained. And how we access our food is ingrained from that time as well. But the one thing I would say, COVID was a bunch of BS and the worst cost on life maybe ever. But it did give us one insight, which I think we don't want to lose track of. COVID proved to us that we could do things differently. It wasn't forced on us, but all of a sudden we were doing things very differently. The traffic was almost non-existent. People weren't going to the mall, people weren't hanging out, people were starting to maybe hang out at home. Sometimes that was a good thing, sometimes not. We can do things differently.
Yeah. And sourdough got really popular.
Yeah, we must choose to eat, and we must be intentional about everything that we choose to put in our mouth and make sure that whatever that is received love in its lifetime, because you really do get that added benefit when you intake life that has experienced a joyful loving, and it is science-based. But once we do start doing that's the fuel. That is how we start generating our own engine. Once we jump off of the easiness of just, I haven't thought about food, so now I'm going to run to the grocery store and just grab a few things and out the door and shove them in my mouth. If we think ahead a little bit, like when people buy a half a beef from me, I do actually have a minimal cookbook that I teach people how to cook fully grass and browse finished, fed and finished beef, and it is different. You do cook it differently. You do handle it differently. But if you can think ahead, you can be loving yourself by taking in love-centered food while you're helping your local economy, while you're helping local kids who want to learn something. The Unbound Grace programs are open to all youth interested in learning. And for the majority of the years, 99% of the kids are here fully scholarshiped. Because anybody who's interested in learning should be provided the opportunity to learn and pursue what their curiosity is, instead of saying, no, you're going to do this and you're going to sit in a chair for 6 hours every day. That is not who the human being genome is. We're supposed to run and bounce heads and play and rub and tumble, just like the baby cows and the baby horses do. So as we move back into thinking about what really is the healthy way to live, and be intentional about trying to not throw your money at the supermarket who robs the food away from the farmers, but to try and have that relationship with a farmer, and everything will start becoming healthy again. But it does start with treating our own body as a temple and treating our own body with a sacred love, that you're not going to feed your sacred temple body crap food that nobody else cared about and despised that life while it was here.
Totally. And this makes me think a lot about how like grassroots movements grow, especially what you said about it being difficult to change habits. We can't expect everyone or even most people to do it right away. But those of us who are interested, those of us who care enough to go out of our way, we can do that now. And while we do that, and especially if we organize locally with other people who want to do that, we're building up that local economy. We're supporting those local ranchers. We're feeding ourselves better. And then we can do very creative things to then extend that consciousness to others. We can throw community events like community barbecues, and people go, "Oh my God, this is the best ribs I've ever had in my life," And then you tell them, "Well, we're buying half a cow every month, and we'd love to bring you in on that group buying thing." And you can go to local restaurants and start offering that same sort of a service. Like, hey, we're group buying beef, and we would love for you to be able to provide local quality beef in your restaurant. So why don't you jump in on our group purchase? It'll even bring our price down a little bit, because instead of buying a half, we'll buy a whole cow.
Exactly.
And it really, and it builds from just a few people in any given place. If they're dedicated and they're even just like baseline satisfied with doing it for themselves, but also have that drive to extend it outward, it will build over time. So it's very much the same mentality as grassroots building, grassroots movements.
I'll give you one example. I had a customer, one of my, I have an Airbnb downstairs, which used to be a general store. But anyway, one of my early customers in 2016, they lived in Manhattan. They had come up here with their 3 children to spend time learning about farming, which they did and stayed downstairs. They ended up buying a half a cow. And she's from Vietnamese descent, so comes from a culture of knowing how to use every part of the animal. She actually wanted the tripe, she wanted the eyeballs and everything, which I wasn't able to provide. But she has all that historic knowledge. But she, even though they were living in a very small Manhattan apartment, she went back and on her floor, they actually, this is the most cut up I've ever had one. They bought a whole half and she split it between 7 other families. So it was 8 families, split a half of a cow. They came up and drove it back down. But in that way, their entire floor was able to rejoice and have healthy food. So there are ways to spread love.
Yep.
And what we put in our mouth really does matter.
Yep. Yep. And I'm hoping what we can do here kind of bridges the gap between the resources that like beef maps and real milk offer, and then the people in local communities that care about it enough to then bring it the rest of the way, that sort of that last mile, right, to their actual neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Johnny, did you have something, bud? Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, not only is this, so good for us to be eating better, of course, but, this is how we can sequester carbon, build the soils, and, just get away from all of this toxicity. And we've got a lot of tyranny suggested. They want to take a lot of our freedoms under the guise of climate change or carbon emissions. And this is the answer. And this just shows you that, they are malicious because they ignore the way that we can build soils with plants and animals managed responsibly. When you move the cattle around, managing it intensively, as kind of we see in nature, that grass gets a rest. It gets a chance to grow back so much stronger. The manure, the pruning, it's amazing. The roots from grass can go down 10 meters, 30 feet. And so we can offset all of our carbon emissions just by, all going on the carnivore diet. Meanwhile, some of the big tyrants that they want to suggest that we should be eating crickets and no more cattle, no more red meat for anybody. And so there you go.
Yeah, and that was actually something really interesting you just said. The idea of sequestering carbon in the soil, even if you're not worried about the carbon concentration in the atmosphere, because maybe it is a problem, maybe it's not. Carbon in the soil, is that important for soil health and soil quality?
Absolutely.
There you go. Awesome.
And it's it is the natural living web of life. And also recognize as a child, when I was just talking to somebody else who grew up, he was a few years younger than me. I said, but do you remember that when we were kids, every farmer in the area about this time of year would be burning off the rest of, areas where maybe you don't have something grazing or wherever it was, you'd burn off the stubble. And that actually provides carbon back into the soil, and it wipes out any invasive sort of tick invasion, or it's basically a cleansing part. I grew up in the woods day before sun up to after sundown. I never had ticks as a child. I have chickens everywhere now, so I don't have to worry about ticks either. But I know the burning because I was out in the fields, the burning does clear off and take the population down. But plants need carbon as part of their growth cycle. So the carbon sequestering, even though I don't think it's so much the carbon that we're putting up. I believe it's the raping of the skin of the earth, which is increasing the temperatures and making the vibrations of patterns fluctuate more grandly.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, but it is still important, and it's a valuable thing to be still sequestering carbon in the soils, so that all of the life that move off of the soil and the chlorophyll process and growing other plants is all of the ingredients are there for a healthy recipe for life.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Food Web because right before you did that, Jackbot, who just came up onto the stage, commented in the Purple Pill about us maybe offering to people how they can sort of build out a healthy food web. And I'm curious what that might even look like. But I love the sentiment and the idea.
Can I just say this quickly?
Yeah.
I have customers who actually come. Some of them come up and they decide to camp on the farm overnight. Some stay in the Airbnb. Some drive up, grab their half a beef, and drive back all the way to the Carolinas. I've got New York. I have mailed beef to Florida and different areas in Colorado. It's something I kind of don't want to do. It takes up a lot of time. And I really think that they should find farmers in their area so that we're not adding needless carbon into the atmosphere with transportation. We have to be wise and frugal. My mother was gone 2 years now, but she was 100. And the people who lived through that time when her child, it was horse and wagon, and living through the Depression, you know that life is precious. You don't let half of your steak spoil in the refrigerator because that is a crime against life. You try and use everything and then eat your leftovers. My goodness.
My girlfriend's so bad about that. I try so hard not to judge her for it, but it's hard. It's hard. She throws away so many leftovers.
Get some chickens.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Yeah, what you mentioned about like food miles and people like we really need to help people find local farms. Will, I'm failing at his last name, from the MAHA Action press conference on Monday, was saying the same thing, that he turned his farm regenerative organic and he's selling as far away as Washington State. And he doesn't want to do that because he knows that he's sort of cannibalizing a potential market for local farmers in Washington State. He really wants to provide for his region. And I think that's beautiful. And I'm glad he's there to provide for Washington State when the sort of connections haven't been made yet, because that's sort of a transitional connector piece in the meantime. But as we do this, it just becomes so important that we reduce those food miles and get our food regionally, and maybe even start shifting to a more diverse mix of what we're eating based on what historically grows regionally, seasonally. Especially if our own genetic heritage came from that region, even as far back as a couple hundred years, because we might be shifting towards that would have been more appropriate for the climate and everything else that we're experiencing while living in that place. Harmonia had her hand up for a moment. If she wants to go, that's great. And then otherwise we had Ranch Mama and then Jackbot. Harmonia, did you have something?
Hi, was my hand?
It was up for a moment.
Oh, I don't know why it went down. Thank you. Thank you for having me up.
Sure, thanks for coming.
Okay, so I wasn't in the space very long. I think maybe 20, 30 minutes. So I'm not sure if you guys covered that. But I am currently living in the West Coast, which makes finding regenerative farming, raw milk, anything like that impossible. So I heard you say you went on rawmilk.com and found some local sources. I've done that and I can't seem to find anything.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not on the West Coast. I used to be. And when I lived in the Bay Area, I was actually buying raw milk at the Berkeley Bowl, which is my favorite local grocery store in the Bay Area. And the last I heard, the brand that sells at Berkeley Bowl and other grocery stores in the state, because apparently that is legal there in California at least, they might have started not watering down their milk, but their whole milk used to be cream top and it had a lot of cream on top, but now it doesn't so much because I think their demand is increasing. So they had to start skimming it to sell their cream separately. But if you're in California, you might be surprised and find it at either like the Berkeley Bowl if you're in the Bay Area, or if you're down by LA, Erewhon might carry it. Otherwise, I'm not really sure, but this is something I hope we over the coming weeks and months get a little better at sourcing. So if people have specific questions for their region, we actually have answers for them.
So no, I'm not in California. I'm from California, but I'm in Nevada now. So
that might be a lot harder, right?
Yeah, it's a lot harder. And I heard you say you're trying to fix leaky gut, and I'm in the process of doing that myself. I did the carnivore. I lost like for a year, hoping that would help. I lost like 12 pounds, probably because I didn't have a lot of weight to lose. But I wasn't doing it for the weight loss. That's just kind of what happened in a year. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God. But I wasn't feeling the best. I'm just going to be honest with you. I was doing carnivore, very strict. I'm like this all or nothing kind of personality.
Yeah, same page.
So if I'm going to quit something, it's cold turkey. If I'm going to go in, I'm going to go all in, kind of all or nothing. So that's what I did. I dove into carnivore. First month was really hard. I'm sure you're kind of going through that oxalate dumping, all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, Damo, you need some of that high quality beef.
I need some of the high quality beef. I need before long I'll be ready to reintroduce dairy and I'd love to do some good raw dairy. Actually, the farmstead that is run by the people who founded the Weston A. Price Foundation is only about an hour away from me, so I really want to go and visit them at some point. I don't have the finances for it. In fact, ironically, because I'm not getting paid to do this work and I don't have any other paid work right now, carnivore and eating just conventional ground beef worked for my budget because it's actually like the cheapest diet I've ever been on. But it has been a challenge. And Harmonia, yeah, it's been a challenge. Did you happen to do Harmonia? Were you making bone broth at home? Because a big part of it, aside from just eating just like beef, which is highly nutritious, is making sure you're getting that good collagen and that glycine and that gelatin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then when I'd render fat, because everything's so high in fat, because you got to have all the fat, I would render all of that. I would use bacon grease to cook. Like I still do this now, but it's just a caveat. So I don't think carnivore works for everybody. So a year later,
I believe it. It's not one size fits all. And I'm hoping I don't need to be on it forever, right? Because this is working. The two main symptoms I've had, at least physical symptoms, have been oral thrush from most likely candida and a seborrheic dermatitis. I get flaky skin on my face and my scalp. And if I'm really off balance, that gets really bad. And both of those symptoms are in about 90 to 95% remission right now. So I think I've got the candida pretty much licked, but this has been going on for me for about 15 years. So I assume I've got several months ahead of me at least to work through the leaky gut aspect. But honestly, aside from animal fats and proteins working really well for my body, I also do really well with good healthy sugars, maple syrup, raw honey, fresh fruit. And so I'm hoping that I can reintroduce some things before too long. Probably not the carbs, the sugars for a little while, but those good raw dairies and those good local nutritious dairy. Not just because I'm going a little crazy, just eating salted beef all the time, but because it's good diversity and you get those enzymes. I can start introducing things like colostrum, like raw colostrum from a local farm and that sort of stuff. But you're right, it's not one size fits all. And one of the things I'm so frustrated about with the medical system these days is that it's so off on helping people cure themselves and understand nutrition and other things that we're going to social media to try to find our answers. And there's just, it's almost cult-like, all these different ideas on what's the optimal diet and what are the supplements you should be taking. No, you shouldn't be taking any supplements. And, carnivore is great. No, Ray Peat is better. And like, who knows? And without being able to know even, for instance, what's appropriate for you genetically or epigenetically, how can you really know other than trial and error, right? And insurance sure isn't covering any of that. So if you're also struggling financially, good effing luck. It's really frustrating. And I'm almost grateful that I'm going through it personally, because I'm such a grassroots sort of like an activist-y guy, that when I've got skin in the game personally, I immediately start thinking about it in a meta context, sort of a global context. It's like, well, if I'm dealing with this, how many other people are dealing with this, and what can we do together to address this? And how does it factor in to the entire global system of control and dominance that it seems like we've been under for so long? So for me, that web is more than just food. It's also social and economic and communications and political. But yeah, I'm so glad you could join us.
So I just have one question.
Yeah.
So I would be willing to drive out of state. I'm serious. If I have to go to Utah, wherever, I mean, I have to drive further. How can someone like me, because I order my meat right now, I think it's Wild Pastures or White Oak, I can't remember. And I mean, it's great and all. It's like I'm on a bi-monthly subscription. But I would like to buy like a whole cow or a half a cow. I have room, like we have freezers.
Nice. Well, Bree might know. Bree, do you have any thoughts on that?
But how would I do that? Like I can't. They're not going to ship me a whole cow. Like how do I know? Where am I going to find these farmers?
Yes, we can totally ship you a whole cow.
Really?
Say the same thing, Marcy. Go for it.
No, I was hoping Shannon. I'm so glad Shannon showed up. But yeah, on Beef Maps, find somebody. Somebody can be close to you. I think you said you're in Nevada. We know some folks there. But if you don't want to do that, there are plenty of us. Shannon, myself, we can ship a whole cow to you. It comes in some boxes. The boxes are recyclable, but we can get you a whole cow, a half cow. We can even set up, like somebody was saying, I can't remember who it was just now, maybe Ed, was saying about you can do coordinate with somebody and go in on half a cow, and then we can set it up for you that you can get a quarter of that and they can get the other side of it. Either one, but there are options.
Yeah, because I heard it, because everything I order now, it's pasture raised, whatnot. But I hear people and they say it's different when you can buy like a quarter of a cow or half a cow. And I'm like, how am I supposed to? First of all, how am I supposed to go drive and pick it up? I just don't understand how people in the West Coast are able to find the same products that most of you are able to.
Well, it sounds like there's options. I hope you connect with some of these folks outside the space, and I got a feeling they're going to be able to sort you out.
Hey, could I give Dogevan, are you there right now? He's so kind to there he is. Just real quick, we'll get right back to the meat, but we launched the space on the effort of community building, and he's the one I was telling you about that handles the stray dogs. And I just thought it was so great how they came from this, decentralized kind of blockchain family but then they've got these on-site projects going on. And I just, real quick, if you just give us a rundown of your project and how your community was able to build and grow and where you guys are going, if you don't mind, man, I would just love it. I think so much of you guys, the whole Doge fam.
Hey, I appreciate you inviting me up. Can you hear me pretty good? I'm coming through my Bluetooth.
Sounds well enough. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm Dogevan, and like Kristina was saying, I travel across the country and rescue dogs. And over the years, I've built relationships, specifically with the Shiba Inu breed. And I'm also a big Dogecoin fan, and I've been using my Dogecoin for years just to travel across the country and and help save dogs. And I've built relationships with a lot of rescues across the country. One in particular is in Arizona, and they currently have over 60 Shiba Inus that were at risk of euthanasia. And they have a sanctuary that is down just north of Phoenix. But we're building a new facility in northern Arizona on 40 acres on top of a mesa. It's going to be fully self-sustainable, off-grid. We're building a house right now that's made out of pallets. And the goal is to use solar power to mine cryptocurrencies, merge mining, Dogecoin and Litecoin specifically, to not only be able to take care of the dog's needs, like, buying them food and, any medical necessities and things of that nature, but to also eventually, hopefully, have enough solar energy and enough miners to not just be fully sustainable, but actually profitable, to be able to generate a profit where we can build these kind of facilities all over the country, and potentially all over the globe.
It's a new kind of farm.
Yeah, it's like a digital farm, for dogs, and it could really, but it could really go into any industry, like the bee thing too, I guess, just however you want to wrap your head around it. But yeah, we're kind of building the prototype right now, and my goal in the future, if everything is successful, is I have a token, a crypto token called DogeVan, and I want it to all be tied together, where essentially we can tokenize the land. So anybody who is a token holder can actually, they're investing in the project, in the land, but they're actually owners of the land as well. That they're owners of the rescue. I don't know. It's just,
yeah. Some people fear crypto, but when you use it like that, and you're using it for community building and whatnot, and these other people, and they're holding on to this this almost little funding source, I think has such pure and beautiful intentions. As a lot of people be like, "Oh, don't crypto in your space," but it's so different what you're actually doing and the methodologies and what you're using the currency.
Totally.
For.
DogeVan. I've been in the crypto space, honestly, since the Satoshi paper came out in 2008, but especially I was full-time from like 2017 until a couple years ago. And one of the main reasons I got in was exactly this kind of thing, that it was a non-state currency. It is programmable money. It's an alternative way to crowdfund. It's a way to distribute collective ownership of projects. And I haven't seen many, if any, especially at this level, nail the model. But I feel like once we get an example or two of a community project that successfully crowdfunds and distributes ownership through these sorts of tools and technologies, then we can replicate it across all sorts of other projects. Because the idea of crowdfunding can be applied to literally anything. It doesn't matter that your thing is specifically like a dog rescue, which is a beautiful thing in and of itself. It's the fact that you had a project, you built a community around it, you raised the money for it, and then ran the ownership through it as well.
We could do Beefcoin.
I think there probably has been one, honestly, but it was probably a bullshit model, if you will, pun intended. But yeah, I find it fascinating. And another thing with crypto that's really interesting, the DogeVan you probably know about, is the idea of a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. So if you bought ownership stake in a project and they gave you tokens, which is analogous to stock, the tokens themselves represent your voting rights on the project. So they can put out a poll about various decisions that need to be made. And if it's a weighted poll based on how much you own versus just like regardless of how much you own, one holder, one vote, but they can just run it all through the same sort of tech stack. And we can even have sort of apps, and who knows if Elon will integrate this sort of stuff at some point, but you can have an app where you can find projects to buy into, and then those projects can organize right there on the app with tools created on the app to help people stay informed and understand what's going on and have a say in how things are happening. And I think this is very relevant to a lot of the community things we might be talking about over the coming months and years.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe what you just said is going to be available very soon on the My Doge wallet. They're building an operating system called My Doge OS, and it's like a layer 2 for the Dogecoin blockchain that you can build DAOs on and apps and just exactly what you were saying, you know.
That's super
So,
cool, man. I've got the My Doge app. If anyone plays with Doge and wants to help fund my work here, you can tip me over at I think it's Boldly Grow on the My Doge wallet. And Doge Van, if you've got one, you could kick that out too, man.
Yeah, I just really.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for spending time to share that with us, because there's just so much promise in it, and it's just such a beautiful thing, and I really appreciate you sharing, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me up. Like, I don't have all the answers by no means. Like, I'm not a blockchain wizard by no means or a CTO, but I do have these ideas and I know that they can work. And I truly believe that cryptocurrency is not only like the future of animal rescue in general, like it can change, like in my opinion, when it comes to animal rescue, it's very antiquated. You know, it's like an outdated system. And I truly believe that a new system can be implemented utilizing crypto that can build something sustainable, a model that's sustainable. And it can really be carried over to any industry.
Yeah.
It comes down to the people that are behind it, and it's not for their own gain. You know, I'm not doing this to make money for myself. I'm doing this to make money for the dogs, you know, and build a community project.
Totally.
That's the whole idea.
Totally. And this is grassroots. It's like when you say you don't have all the answers, few of us do, especially in a grassroots environment, but that decentralized nature where you might not have an answer, but you're going to have the catalyst. You're going to be the one that's really a driving force in care and communication. And that creates sort of a point for other information and other resources to come together around. So I really appreciate you being here, man. I want to get back to the beef topic, but that's awesome, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, buddy. Thanks for coming. Absolutely, brother. We had a few hands up. Right now, it's only Peaceful Warrior, but if you had your hand up before and you still want to say something, throw that hand back up, and we'll get to you. I promise. Peaceful, go ahead, buddy.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to add a few things on this thing with beef and whatnot. The what's been popular, I think, is the having the where you boil the bones. Years ago, going back a few years, we used to get 20 pounds of bones, beef bones, boil them. I'm talking about boiling them outside day and night. I probably broke a few laws, but put them in a big pot, put them on a something to boil them, like an old, what do you call it, a chicken fry or a turkey fryer, one of those things. Let it go like days and days boiling them, and then have that nice broth. It was just delicious. And then we found down in Queens, we found a small Korean establishment down there, and they would boil their beef bones day and night for days and days and sell it. It's called solongtang, and it's a beef soup with you throw in some scallions and some salt, and really delicious. I mean, it's just because that you're getting all that rich bone marrow, with all the nutrients and stuff from it, and surprisingly, since I used to buy the 20 pounds at a time, it's skyrocketed from like I think 99 cents a pound to over $2 to $3 a pound for beef bones that might have some of the marrow in it, but it's so nutritious for you. And one more plug I want to give that some of my Northeast people might know. There's a thing there's a it's called the Hudson Valley Garlic Festival. It's around in September, and it's in Saugerties, New York. Very close to the Woodstock, New York, because I'm a Woodstock generation myself, and I would go to it, and it's great. They even have garlic ice cream Garlic
I had that
ice
in
cream.
Gilroy, California. They do garlic ice cream.
Do they?
I was brave enough. I tried it. It
Yeah.
wasn't bad.
And
It was all right.
and they'd have some local bands. It would be like I think her name was Annie and the Headhunters, and it's that area, Saugerties, I believe, is the home of Jay Unger and Molly Mason, who wrote the tune "Shokin Farewell," which was one of the theme songs in the Civil War. That was on PBS. What's his name there that does all those? He's done baseball and the Civil War and all that, and so it's rich in history, this area. But thank you. I'll land the helicopter there.
For sure, for sure. I can't tell if hands are dropping on my screen and not others. I do see Ranch Mama back up now, but I know I saw other hands. Go ahead, Ranch Mama.
Well, I am Ranch Mama Shannon from Ebersole Cattle Co. We are in southern Iowa, and I work with a group of ranchers like Marcy and Brianna and everyone on beefmaps.com. And what we do is we help everyone like you guys find your local rancher and learn more about all these things that you guys are talking about. How to make bone broth, how to get a half a beef shipped to your house. We're going to have another Spaces tonight that's just going to dig into all of these exact questions on how does it really work? What does it look like when you get a half cow? What does it look like when you get a quarter cow? What do you really get in those sorts of things? Because so many people like you guys are waking up to the fact that buying real beef from a real rancher is so much better for you, for the environment, for everything. And like you found out, you can even buy just 50 or 100 pounds of ground beef all at once and have ground beef from the source that you know. Because in our house, that's what we cook the most of. And you don't even have to get it all at once. You can get it shipped to you 10 pounds at a time. That's what I do on our ranch, is we do a monthly box that's like getting a quarter over a year. And what I specialize in on my ranch is teaching you how to cook once and eat 3 times. Because I found that those things were different for some people. Teaching you how to use those leftovers and how to plan those leftovers. But I'd love to dig into more of your questions tonight on our Beef Initiative Spaces.
Awesome. Hey, if one of you guys wants to donate some ground beef my way, that would be huge, because it's pretty much my entire diet right now. And I'm stuck with conventional beef buying from Giant. I'm not excited about it, but it's what I got. I'm trying to find, did someone post the beefmaps.com in the purple pill? I want to put it up in the nest.
Yes, I posted it down below, and then I also dropped our Spaces link in for tonight.
Great. I'll find that and get that up in the nest too. The Beef Maps is up in the nest now. Everyone should check it out if you're looking for high quality beef. You will find something.
And if you don't have a rancher that's near you, like in Nevada, any of the featured ranchers across the bottom, like Rattlesnake, like Ebersole Cattle Co., all of us can ship straight to your door. And we've done it long enough that we know how to get it to you safely and most efficiently, like Marcy said, with recyclable boxes, all the important details.
I'm sorry to cut in. Who's speaking? I can't see.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Ranch Mama Shannon.
Are you up on the stage?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Spaces is glitchy sometimes.
It's the one, Harmonia, that Bree responded to your comment in the pill about Green Ranch Mama. She's that one.
You guys are so inspiring. I want to cook up some bone broth now. I have some Amish around me, like right up the road, and I wonder if they might even be a good source.
Dude, that's the other one I'm struggling with too, because I'm buying these marrow bones from Giant, and they're like, rather than being the canoed, like the long bones that are cut horizontally, or like vertically, I guess, they're these little like medallions, and they seem weak. Like they're doing the job, I guess, but they're conventional, and these little medallions, there's no, it seems like there's something missing from them, but I'm buying those and chicken feet.
Damo, we'll hook you up. We'll get you hooked up from the Beef Initiative, okay? I promise.
You're the best. You're the best. I'm so excited to up my game.
What you want is you want knuckle bones, because that has the collagen in it and the marrow in it. So we do big packages, like 3 to 5 pound packages of knuckle bones and marrow bones together. Because when you, like, I forget who it was saying earlier, I like a 24 or a 36 hour. And then at about hour 12, drop in like a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. That will pull out so much more out of even those average bones that you're getting at the grocery store.
I've heard of that and I haven't tried it yet, but that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm using an Instapot and it's not one of the big ones. I usually, when I've got my own, it's usually one of the big guys. But I use an Instapot on the slow cook mode and I do it for 24 hours, but I'll start going for 36.
Try running the pressure cook first. Run a pressure cook cycle and then add more water up to the top, drop in some apple cider vinegar, and then let it go 24 to 36.
Okay. How long on the pressure cook?
I usually do like a half hour.
Okay.
Just to get it supercharged and super started. I put it up to the max water line.
Yep.
And pressure cook it for like 30 minutes. And then I turn it to low, drop in some apple cider vinegar, and I just ignore it for a day or two.
Perfect. Thank you. That's such good advice.
Just really quickly. So here's one that many people on the coast forget about. Oops, sorry, I had a phone call come in. But I'm making chicken fried steak tonight out of chuck roast, and it's just like a super inexpensive, super easy cut. You just tenderize it really well, and you fry it up just like you would chicken. And it's like it's very popular. It's very popular with the husband and the kids, and it's a really inexpensive, like really good cut. So, I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you can do to go from nose to tail, as Ranch Mama was talking about.
Totally. And there's this thing that most people don't realize, that some of these cheaper cuts of meat that tend to be like tougher, that you can absolutely cook them in ways they end up tender. Some of them even have more nutrition in them than your standard steak cut. And they don't think of them because they're cheap and they're tough, but they're actually super high quality in it. And it makes it easier to have a budget friendly, nutritious food in your diet. We're going to cut off here in just a few minutes because American Mission has a hard cut at 4:30. And we've been going for about 2 hours and 15 minutes so far. And we're excited, but a little tired. But I do want to let Harmonia go again and see what she's got to say.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Just with the meat. So I can't do organ meat either. I'm like you, Maha. I cannot.
It's tough.
I can't. No matter what I do, I can't. So I order it desiccated. Now, is that the same, or when I order the meat, are they going to be able to mask it into the ground beef? I don't know if I just feel like
good question, right?
I can still taste it. You know. I'd like
yeah.
strong powder.
I choke it down because I know it's really good for me, and I know that eating it whole and fresh like that is probably better, but it is a challenge. I'm curious about trying an organ blend ground because I'm wondering if that'll, yeah.
It's amazing. Beck Ranch has an organ blend ground, and liver literally saved my life, and I can't stand it, but I have to eat it, and I can't even taste it in Beck Ranch's ancestral blend.
There you go. That's good info. Ed, and then we'll probably close out.
Yeah, I don't want to start a range war from the past, but what hasn't been mentioned is lamb. Lamb's a great meat, and the thing is they graze on really a good diversity too. And a lot of people that don't have large properties could easily do a couple lambs. When it comes to shipping and all that sort of thing, of course, they're a smaller animal. Even if you've got somebody in your area that is a deer hunter or something and does their own slaughtering, you can, that's pretty easy to do also. And I really would hope in the future that the beef initiative could sort of maybe become the beef and lamb initiative, because a lot of That's what Will Harris has realized, that you were talking about, that was on the MAHA thing, because he does most multi-species.
Can I speak? Can I interrupt you here?
Multi-species is really good for
Dojvan,
grazing too.
Ma, can you listen?
I dropped them. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that,
Yeah.
guys, and thanks for being forgiving with me even kind of bringing crypto into this arena or space. You know, if you guys have extra bones, I know there's some dogs out there that might want them as well. But no, and thank you for these recipes and really educating the public on, you know, how to cook these things, because I don't know how to make broth, but I am very iron deficient. I need liver. I need good sources of it because I know what the liver does is process things. So if I don't have a good source of liver, I wanted to buy some, but I've just been really scared to, because I don't know what's in it, and I know it's an important choice. So I would love this education if you guys do have a good source for that. Yeah, I'm all ears.
Yeah. I'll let you guys go ahead and respond real quick, and then we'll close it out.
So I was just going to respond in that Bree and Shannon would also agree. A lot of us own beef maps. We do have other species like lamb. We have lamb on ours. We have quarter with a lamb also. But there are a lot of us that do have just more than beef on there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's kind of just a
exactly
good name,
what I-
right? As opposed to calling it like cattle maps.
Yeah, it should be meat maps, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like for example, our family we do cattle and hogs. So like that's what I was jumping on here to say is the exact same thing that Rattlesnake Cattle Co did.
Awesome.
And this so we are expanding, and eventually we'd like to be able to offer like poultry, hogs, cattle, sheep, the whole gamut. But yeah, we're building out the system right now. We are we have integrated Bitcoin from the beginning. So if you have gold, there will be meat. If you have Bitcoin, there will be meat. And yeah. We're all about different mediums of exchange and exchange of value, and most importantly, that sovereignty that comes with self-custody, whether it's currency or whether it's livestock. So yeah, I would just really encourage everyone to go check out the Beef Initiative, support our work, please, by supporting our ranchers. And then if you feel led to, support the I Am Texas Slim Foundation. That's my wing of the Beef Initiative. I work on policy, articles for ag, and really like my focus has been on policy and decentralizing processing within legislation and regulatory reform lately. So if you guys love our work, please support us. Drop us a tip, and or you can even adopt one of our ranchers and help and sponsor, what our ranchers are beef maps, beefnews.org, like any of these things you can help sponsor and help out with. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely go and follow Beef Maps. They are here on Twitter. X, sorry. Follow. I did it again. Follow the speakers. Follow Club MAHA. Follow me and Kristina. Really appreciate you guys being here. I'll let Kelly J at America Mission have the last word.
Oh no, now I'm nervous actually.
No pressure.
Actually, it was just a follow-up. I was just wondering if you guys had heard anything about the Monsanto deal, the evil Monsanto immunity in Georgia. Did he end up signing it, or?
I don't think it's signed yet. And as of today, if I understand correctly, he's got 40 days to either sign or veto. And if he does nothing, it's functionally the same as signing it. It'll automatically become law. Thanks for bringing that up, actually.
Yeah, in Tennessee too. It just went through the House Judiciary Committee in the state of Tennessee. So yeah, this is actually, Kelly, do you want to explain what's happening right now? Because I don't think many people are even aware of what's happening between the Farm Bureau and Bayer Monsanto right now, and it's egregious.
Actually, I'm going to hand it off to Damo to probably explain, or Kristina. I did put, though, the call to action in the purple pill, the one that we produced. So
can you throw that up into the nest for us? Sometimes I'm not seeing it when I go and search the purple pill.
Okay. I will do, but yeah, I'll leave it to you to explain. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I wish I could explain as well as some folks can. What I know is that Bayer Monsanto is going on essentially a lobbying tour around the country, lobbying states to pass legislation that gives them immunity from prosecution for the harm their products do. And the first bill passed in Georgia and is sitting on the governor's desk right now. So with enough pressure, we might be able to get the governor to veto that bill. And if that bill is signed into law or defaults into law in 40 days, it sets a bit of a precedent. It makes it more likely for the next state to pass it. So there's a line in the sand we can try to draw here. And even if that one does go into effect, it sounds like the next one to focus on is Tennessee. But we do need to rally up and start paying attention to this as the MAHA movement and start pressuring these states to not pass these laws. Bayer Monsanto alone is facing, I think, hundreds of thousands of lawsuits for the harm that Roundup and glyphosate are doing. And they're used in incredible numbers on our farmland. So a lot of the conventional produce we're eating, but not just the produce, the meat we're eating, which is fed the produce, is full of glyphosate. We've got to get it out of our food supply, and we can't be letting these companies, especially foreign companies, but any company, get shielded from the consequences of forcing this stuff into our food supply. So it's a great place for us to make a stand. Yeah, Brie?
Absolutely. And just really quickly, this is the egregious part, right? Because Bayer Monsanto and the Farm Bureau are propagandizing, running massive billboards, massive campaigns, saying that those lawsuits against Bayer Monsanto were all from the World Health Organization.
Oh, Jesus.
Foreign maligned influence in the United States ag industry that are harming
American farmers.
America's farmers and ranchers. When the truth is that these lawsuits, the bulk majority of these were filed by Children's Health Defense, I Can Decide, and Bobby Kennedy. Okay. They are terrified of Bobby being in HHS, and they are trying to use the states to essentially create a workaround to federal regulations. And it's really important to understand that what the Farm Bureau is doing here. And if you are a Farm Bureau member, now is the time to draw the line in the sand and get out and stop supporting the Farm Bureau.
Man, that is grade A propaganda. That is grade A propaganda.
Just think about
saying it's the World the World Health Organization. Like, my God, because I remember all the way back with the Organic Consumers Association and the March Against Monsanto, and I was doing GMO labeling awareness work with Dr. Bronner's in 2013. This had nothing to do with the World Health Organization. This was crunchy ass hippies and people who were willing that gave a shit enough and were willing to step up. This was so grassroots. And Bobby Kennedy. So screw that. So if you call the Georgia legislature, there's a phone number. We shared it on Monday. I don't have it handy. I don't know if Christina has it handy.
It's in the call to action. It's up now in the Jumbotron.
Oh, okay.
And I just want to point out, I mean, MAGA really needs to get behind this too. Naturally they will. But think about BigPharm, 2020, 2021. Who's protected from all the evil that was done by a particular vaccine? Pfizer. They've got immunity, right? Moderna, we don't need to repeat this.
Right. Yeah, it's the same. It's totally the same. So we're gonna close out here in just a second, but go up to the Nest, the Jumbotron, whatever you call it. The first link or the top link there should get you to the information you need. Call Governor Kemp. It doesn't matter if you live in Georgia. They're not going to ask. Just say you want them to veto. You want him to veto SB 144. You do not believe that these pesticide manufacturers should be shielded from liability if their products are causing harm. Simple as that. No big deal. Just takes a minute. They need pressure, and they need it now.
Absolutely. So America Mission, amazing content there. I also shared the other link to the petition. If you're in the state of any of these states that it's going through, that's just that's through the GMO Free USA link as well. So yeah, we love to do a call to action at the end. I'm really glad you guys swung this back around because they're doing a blitzkrieg push, and we need to push back and continue to network the way that we did today. I saw a lot of beautiful connections drawn between the speakers on the stage, and had some great contribution from the audience. Guys, this has just been so great, and I'm so grateful to have everybody here, and that you guys are all on the same mission to make America healthy again,
Yep.
and make our families great.
This is exactly how I've been hoping these conversations would go. Our community is growing quickly. I can tell there's a bunch of people here that keep coming back that are dedicated to these causes and these issues. And I know we've got some organizers in this space. So as we start formulating what it looks like to create local groups, and as we start doing the work to really track all these initiatives, we'll find a better way to stay in touch and keep people informed, and help act as sort of interstitial tissue to make sure we're all connected, informed, and driven. Thank you guys so much for being here. This was such an awesome space. I'm excited to see you all again Friday, 2:00. And thank you so much. Yeah, we'll see you soon.